Welcome to Talking Soccer with Chris and Will. This is Will.
I'm Chris.
And today we're going to be talking about the Galaxy's new signings and also OCSC's recent run of form.
I think, first, I guess before we get into kind of delving into, what Galaxy or more OCSC have been up to, we took a little break, right? A couple weeks.
Break is good sometimes, right? A
Especially
little
with
vacation.
especially with like, there wasn't really much soccer going on, right? Like in terms of Galaxy
Yeah,
and
they
then with the
crashed out of
women's,
the Leagues Cup.
right? Yeah. So, but no, it was a nice little break. I wasn't really up too much in terms of like activities. I think it was just more like work, just dealing with like going to be moving soon to like a bigger apartment. So dealing with that. And then, just travel with my fiance moving back to California. So,
Oh,
just a lot of
nice.
stuff going on. But busy, just a bunch of, being busy, doing a bunch of stuff. But so,
More home
you
stuff,
know,
it sounds like, right?
So I haven't had a chance to catch much OCSC games, right? I haven't been there in months, but hopefully
Hopefully we catch one soon.
you're gonna be there this weekend, right?
Yeah,
And hopefully towards the end of the month, I'll be able to finally catch a couple, or towards the end of the season, hopefully to catch the last few games. But no, I think, or before we get into it, what have you been up to?
for me, I've been kind of just like staying locally. I went to Knott's a few weeks ago. That was pretty cool, really. And then just staying locally, hitting the local beaches, local bars. I checked out this brewery that's right next to the Santa Fe Swap Meet. It's pretty cool. But yeah, other than that, been enjoying this Galaxy break. Been watching a little bit of Messi in the League's Cup. Have you caught any of those games?
Oh yeah, I think I've watched quite a bit of Leagues Cup. It's been interesting. Um, obviously Messi's all the rage right now with the MLS,
Yeah,
right? It seems like I don't know, like the focus is on their game. They look really good, to be honest.
yeah,
Busquets, Alba was it Albus, and then Messi, and then the other pieces they had there. I think they made a couple signings, a young kid
yeah,
from like Argentina, so they look good. Even the existing guys look better, but maybe that's probably just the Messi effect, right? Getting such a high caliber
yeah.
player around, kind of lifts your levels, right? But no, I think it's been good. The Liga MX hasn't looked great, just because it seems. I think some of the main points I've read online was, it's just based in the U.S., so it's the Mexican teams have to do a lot of traveling. It's not really, it's basically away games for them. So that's kind of the main gripe. But I think overall it's been good. MLS looking strong.
Mhm.
League, a lot of the Liga MX teams didn't look too well, right? But they have Monterrey's in the final, right? And who's the other representative?
Well, the final's gonna be Nashville and Miami, and then yeah, that's right.
Oh, was it? Okay, maybe I got it mixed up. I know Monterrey beat LAFC right last week or around
Yeah,
there. So I think. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I guess they lost, right? So yeah, you're right. The final was Nashville versus Inter Miami, and Monterrey lost to Nashville. So it's
yeah,
Philadelphia Union and Monterrey. But
yeah, that's right. And they're playing for the third place, which is gonna get a league. I mean,
right.
Champions League spot too. So that's gonna be a big game for them, for
Hmm.
Monterrey at
Yeah.
least,
Yeah,
to lock
so
that
it'll be
down.
good. It'll be good. I have Inter Miami heavy favorites, to be honest.
Yeah,
I think it's Messi's destined to lift that trophy up, and
yeah.
then get him into get started on MLS after that. But yeah, I think he's going to tear it up. To be honest, he looks just above everybody else. So it'll be. I think it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, speaking of tearing up, when and I know we kind of talked about this off the air, but when Messi came to the league, I was thinking that he's gonna just do so good, it's gonna make the league look like crap, and I had that kind of mentality with Messi, like watching him play, because he's just like toying with everybody, right? Like on amateur mode on FIFA. But now that I think about it, like I changed my perspective of it a little bit, because if you think about it, he was like tearing up other leagues his
Hmm.
whole life. He was always like one of the top scorers. He went winning all the trophies, the individual trophies, right? So that kind of changed my perspective now. It might be good for, Messi's always tore up any league that he's in. So it might be good for this league, for MLS, for him to tear it up too. So we'll see what's up and what
Yeah,
happens in the
yeah,
future, right?
I agree. He was in bad form, right? In France, I think he was like
Mhm.
one of the top assists for the last 2 seasons, or for his only 2 seasons that he was there.
Yeah.
So he wasn't scoring obviously because he was playing with he was playing with Neymar and Mbappe. But yeah, I don't think that's going to be an issue for him going into MLS. It's going to be he's going to look strong, I think. Yeah, but yeah, looking forward to it. Hopefully, it shakes things up in the on the Eastern Conference, right? Let's see.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if they could climb up the table.
Yeah, that's a good point because like the Galaxy right now, Inter Miami, they're both kind of struggling, right? They in league play, right? They're kind of at the bottom of the table, both of them are. So obviously one team is gearing up in one way, right? They're bringing in the superstars with Miami and stuff like that. And the Galaxy, from what I see, they're doing it a little different way. They've got 5 different players, right? All kind of on the cheap and all kind of reinforcing areas of need. Like, I don't know, have you seen any of the players that the Galaxy have signed in? Have they brought in?
Yes, yeah. So they brought in a couple, right? But a couple of them are just kind of covering for injured players, right? But yeah, they brought in Yoshida. He played in Germany recently with Schalke, but he was a mainstay in the Premier League with Southampton for a number of
Yeah, I,
years,
I remember that.
right? That's kind of where he kind of became known. I think he went to Italy after that, and then more recently Germany.
Are
So
you a
even though
big
he's a
Yoshida fan of the
yes,
signing?
I think so. I think it replaces Caceres. So he was a,
Yeah,
a veteran presence at the back. Obviously, Yoshida will be as their veteran presence there. Maybe provide some leadership as well. I think he captained a couple of the teams. He was, I believe, Southampton and, if I'm not mistaken, Schalke as well. So I think he's a solid pickup, and he's still a pretty high level. He was they got relegated last year, Shaka, but I think he was one of like their better players throughout the season. Yeah, they brought in Diego Fagundes right from Austin FC.
well, real
Um,
quick before we
yeah,
we move on Yoshida, do you think he's a better replacement than Casares, or do you think that he's comparable to
I,
what he
I
brought?
think I think he's at a higher level than Caceres.
Me too, man. I
Yeah,
think he's a better player with more. Well, not better player necessarily, but he's coming in kind of more of an peak than Casares did, right?
yeah. So I mean, he's been playing European, soccer for quite a long time, right? Even though maybe some of the teams he's been on have struggled, but I think he's at a good level still, even though he's a little older. Defenders typically, have a longer shelf life than
Yeah.
forwards, or right. So especially center backs, we have Chiellini still going pretty strong, right, with LAFC. So yeah, I think it's a solid pickup. And then they had another center back pickup right a couple weeks ago, right before the end of the season,
Yeah.
to kind of solidify that. So I think that would
More of
probably
a
be the
backup piece,
yeah,
but yeah.
so a backup, but I think with injuries and stuff like that, I think it's going to be solid replacement there. Until they get back to a little stronger, perhaps, and there could be some good chemistry that builds there.
Speaking
Solid
of
play.
injury, Maya Yoshida has had a long career, right? Like
Hmm.
10 plus years playing professionally, but he's never had like a really serious injury before, which I think might help him this season, help the Galaxy at least this season moving forward. Is hopefully he can stay healthy, and really help the team down the stretch, down these like 12, 10 games that we have left to really make that playoff push. And I know that's really what's going to be the focus for the whole team. It's going to be making that playoff push. But before I cut you off on Yoshida, you were going to talk about the next signing they got, right? One of the other
Yeah,
signings.
yeah. I think they got a couple. a winger slash kind of attacking players, right? So Diego Fagundes, he was a pretty really good player for Austin FC.
Yeah.
I wasn't too. I've heard the name. I wasn't too familiar with him, but it kind of helps kind of add a little bit more to the midfield, right?
He's
I think overall, I think he just kind of provides a little better, more quality to the roster.
Yeah, if anything, he's going to add more depth for sure. But he's definitely, I think, for sure, 100% number one starting um, first team player, like off the bat.
Oh yeah,
He
he goes straight in. I think.
yeah, he slots right in. But the interesting part of it is that he's more like of a cam. So I don't know how he's going to be really be played
Hmm.
in the formation that Greg Vanny likes to play in. But regardless, I'm sure he's going to be able to adapt and really fit in perfectly for the team and for some of the injured players that are out for the year, right? Like Brugman. I know you're a big fan of Brugman,
That's my
and
guy.
yeah, that was your guy. And now, unfortunately, he's out for the season, right? So they had to bring someone in like Fagundes. I don't know if you caught any of the press conference when he came in, but he still sounds a little bit shocked to even be on the team. But
Hmm.
regardless, I mean, he's happy. It sounds like he's happy to be here and to contribute to the team. And again, that playoff push that everybody keeps talking about.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I said. I think he was a little shocked to be traded right from the team. I think he was just an integral part, at least up to a certain more recently. I guess not so much, but they had some recent success. Right, they're a newer team to the league, but they had some success with them. But I think he, like you said, he adds some quality to the midfield. Goes straight in. I think, especially with Brugman out, I think he'll most likely slot into one of the three midfield positions. I'm not sure how Vanny is going to look at it, but from my point of view, Puig and Fagundes go straight into the lineup. Maybe the third spot is up, depending on who's in better form. But yeah, I don't think there's going to be too much, formation tweaking and anything. He's probably going to just try to slot them in and kind of make them work into his system.
Yeah, yeah, and usually an MLS is a little bit more forgiving, so you don't. It's not. It is tactical, but not super heavy, and players can adapt a lot easier with position changes. So we'll definitely keep an eye on Fagundes, but he's a goal scorer, right? He scored goals
Hmm.
in the past and stuff like that, and that's really what the team needs right now is that goal threat. Now the other guy that they signed was Edwin Cerrillos. I don't know if you've looked into him at all.
No, I think
22-year-old
yeah, he's a younger player, but I'm
with
not too
Austin.
familiar with him. Yeah, yeah, but from what I've kind of read up, he's I think he's either a promising young player, right? He's still a young player, so
Mm,
that could be maybe a wild card maybe for the Galaxy. Maybe get a little bit, as a little bit more potential, right, than an established, player, or bringing in one of the more veteran players, right? So I think maybe there's just a little bit more potential there. But
yeah.
overall, I think they've just added a little bit more quality to the midfield. I think they needed that. I think the depth wasn't, when you look across MLS, I think they had, compared to other teams, one of the very few or less depth than other teams, right? So
Yeah.
I think this is going to create, better maybe play within the team, right? There's more up for
More
competition, right?
competition. Yeah.
Yeah, there isn't a solidified 11, right? So maybe that's going to help the team.
Yeah, and he's more of a, from what I can see, he's more of a long term in the sense that he's young, he's tied down for the club for a few years now, so
Hmm.
he's really going to have the ability to really grow. And in his press conference, he really liked the fact that he was coming to LA and like a big city, right? Which
Hmm.
I kind of forget that in these smaller markets like Austin, these players kind of look up to LA and this big market, and being in
Hmm.
LA, Orange County, LA my whole life. I forget about the grandeur of that, of wanting to you know live here, play here, stuff like that. So that's going to be exciting. He's going to play with a little chip on his shoulder, right? And again, he is talented. He's not a guy that's going to score a ton of goals for you, because he plays more defensive midfield role. But again, he's still going to be that depth piece that you really need.
Yeah, I think he'll slot in at least in that Brugman position, right? So he's kind of the more defensive player. So maybe we see him take that spot off. If Rosell doesn't, take advantage and solidify the position, it's probably there for, for so. Like I said, I think it's just overall good depth eventually, once they're maybe for next year too long term, right? So they'll have better depth, but at least they have some players they could turn to, right? Not kind of rely on maybe the youth team, right? As much. Maybe that'd be just a little bit too much to ask, right? Bringing even younger players into the fold. So yeah, I think it'll be solid, at least solid replacements to close out the year, and hopefully make a run. I think they've looked pretty good, right? As before the Leagues Cup started, so hopefully hopefully that the kind of the good form that they had rolls over right to once the season restarts.
Yeah, and I know they added two more players in addition to the players that we've been talking about, and they added more attacking depth, right? They added someone from Colorado, um, Michael Barrios. I don't know if you've heard of him before.
I have a little bit from where he come from, the Colorado Rapids, right? So, yep, I've heard the name a little bit. He's a more veteran player, right? More kind of established MLS player, and I think that they'll be good to kind of add, some depth to like the wings. I think that's probably a position that's a little bit not as deep, as you like. So I think having that veteran presence is going to help. So, you could have him on the wings with Douglas Costa, Boyd, or switch in between all them three, right? Maybe he takes up Boyd's spot, as a coming off the bench, or depending on how Vanny decides to set the lineup up. So I think at least it gives them some flexibility without or some more firepower off the bench.
Yeah, and he might even be like a starting level player. He's only 32 years old. Well, I say only because we're about the same age, but he's 32 years old. He can play on the wing. He can also be like a striker, which is something that we need, right? So he's a proven goal scorer in MLS. So that's going to be a great addition, I think, to the team too. But the Galaxy also added another player, which I think might help them like in the immediate 10 to 12 games. Did you hear about the last player they signed, Billy Sharp?
It's a more recent signing just this week, right?
Yeah, just this week. And, he's the most scoring championship player. He holds the record for the most goals, right? So he's a proven goal scorer, a real poacher in the right place at the right time. Have you caught any of his highlights? I mean, the first thing that I do when the Galaxy signs someone, it's like hit up YouTube and look up their highlights, right? Because we want to see all their abilities and stuff. And I definitely, for him, man, you're gonna be like, whoa, he scores. He's at the right place at the right time, and that's what we need right now, with Puig in there, with those passes, and hopefully the stronger midfield. I think that's gonna help out a lot.
Yeah. So I'm familiar with him. He's been around for a while in English football. I think he's mainly been in the championship. That's where he's made his name, and he's got promoted a couple times into the Premier League. But yeah, I think he's like a Sheffield United legend. I think that's kind of where I think he has like over 100 goals in his time there. And I think he kind of lost them a little later in his career. I think, like, if I'm not mistaken, it was like in his late 20s when he just started becoming this, really good striker in the championship. And I think recently he got released, if I'm not mistaken.
His contract was up.
Or he was expired, right? So it wasn't renewed. So the team didn't sign him up as they were promoted this year to the Premier League.
And he was a big part of that too, of that promotion. He scored those goals off the bench, started sometimes. And what I like about him is that he brings that Although he wasn't playing at Manchester United, Manchester United, Manchester City, or these big teams, he still brings that high level of like Premier League experience, right? Championship experience, because those teams, they're playing just as hard as MLS teams are, right?
Mhm.
So I think that's going to add like a veteran presence up front, hopefully to help our front guys kind of step it up. Uh, but it's going to bring that hunger, right? That these players have, dealing with the relegation aspect of the game, right? There in Europe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think last year he was more of like coming off the bench, like you said. He's a little bit older, right? So,
Mhm.
at that age, you're not maybe the focal point anymore of his team. But like I said, he had a very successful run with Sheffield United. A championship. High level championship striker. I think like I said, he's been with a few clubs. I think Premier League, he wasn't really cut out for that. Maybe it's just a little bit too high, but yeah, I think for MLS is going to be a good for him at least. With that experience, dealing in the championship.
Mhm.
It's very demanding league, and yeah, at least kind of bring that veteran presence right to the front line. I think we definitely need someone. I think that's kind of what Galaxy been lacking, right? Since Chicharito went down, we really don't really have too many great options up front, right? So I think this should help. I'm not sure if he's going to be a. I would actually would think he would maybe slot in as a starter and maybe just kind of limit his minutes and then kind of bring in Jovic or Judd right off the
Yeah.
bench.
Well, yeah. Who knows? I think it's really going to depend on how match fit he is and how he settles in. But yeah, I think that it's a great signing because it's on the cheap, it's on the free, right? So if he scores, if he doesn't score, we still got him on the cheap. He's still bringing that veteran presence in there. So for me personally, as a fan, if he scores 10 goals plus, great. But if he doesn't, at least he's bringing that veteran presence. 2, 3 goals, I'm happy with. I'm not gonna like put a ton of pressure on the guy, but he definitely, from the highlights, like I said, he has a potential to score a lot more than 2 or 3 goals. And then there is I don't know if you looked into his contract, but there's a team option for the second year. So if we want to, if he plays good, we can always pick him up next year on the cheap too, and make maybe a super sub or something like that. But he's going to be a great addition for that playoff push that we're talking about, right? But if you think about it, that's five new players, right? That's almost a whole
Mhm.
new roster that they're bringing in. So bringing it back to comparing Galaxy with Miami, the Galaxy are doing it a completely different way than Miami did, bringing in those giant players like Messi and Busquets, right? So it's going to be interesting to see in league play, at least from my point of view, right? It's going to be interesting to see in leagues play how that's going to shape up, um, or how those two mentalities um, play out. But what do you think about the Galaxy signing so far? As a whole, what do you think about the front office? And then now that Klein's gone, do you think this was a good off season? I mean, transfer market for the Galaxy, or how do you rate it then? I guess.
I would give it a solid B minus, somewhere,
Mm,
maybe B plus. I don't think I think it's solid. They make, I think overall they either maintain the level of the roster, but I feel like they improved it. With the signings, I think the midfield adds a lot more depth, quality of the forward lines as well. Now, with Barrios and Sharp right up there, get a few different options. So I think depth wise, they look better.
yeah.
So, but I think it was for me, it was a successful transfer market for them. They're limited, right, with their transfer embargo, and maybe isn't as attractive as they once were. But it's still LA Galaxies, even though LAFC, they could talk all they want, but I think it's still the Galaxy is the team with the heritage, right, with the history.
Hmm.
Players are going to want to go there. So,
Yeah.
but I think that they have a good opportunity to make a push. I think they have the momentum on their side. It just continue with the good results, right? String them together and at least, slide into, one of the last playoff spots. And, you
Yeah.
never know. MLS, right? Once you're in there, anything's possible.
Yeah, and as it stands today, August 17th, the Galaxy sit, just 7 points away from a playoff spot, with 10 plus games. They really have the potential to do something there with the additions they have, and kind of how MLS shapes up, because there's a lot of upsets in MLS, just like in any other league, right? So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. Now, there's a game this Sunday against Colorado, but I really don't know if it's even going to be played. Did you hear about that hurricane that's coming in?
I did. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not sure, I guess. Hopefully they're able, depending, I guess, how, how the weather is, right? Or what the effect is right here in LA. But yeah, hopefully they'll be able to play the game, unless it's, some sort of extreme weather. I don't think I recall, right? Hurricanes kind of being an issue growing
Yeah,
up here, right?
in
Like, I don't
LA,
think
yeah.
so, right? Yeah. Yeah, so I think we should be good, but maybe it'll be maybe more rain,
Yeah,
perhaps, right?
you'll be surprised. I think MLS. I mean, they're a little bit more soft when it comes to the rain, and I think if it's a lot of water, where like where they can't come in and out, like
Mhm.
the fans can't come in and out as easily because of floodings and stuff like that. I think they would cancel it more because of that, or like if it's going to damage the pitch, having like a wet field and cleats and everything on there. So I think from what I'm hearing on the other podcasts, right, like Corner of the Galaxy, stuff like that, that's kind of the way. Well, the reason they would actually postpone the game, but I guess we'll see, because sometimes they say it's going to rain a ton and it's forecasted, and then at the last minute, it doesn't even rain. So
Right.
we'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. So hopefully it could, if they do play, they get, Colorado's, the Galaxy and Colorado, the bottom two teams in the conference. But just looking towards the bottom portion of the conference, Dallas wasn't playing well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Houston,
They're playing Real
you know.
Salt Lake. Sorry.
Oh, are
Yeah,
they?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. My
Well,
mistake.
well, they're
Same colors. Yeah,
top three team. They're actually probably the best informed team. But
yeah.
like I was saying, with the other team struggling, Galaxy seem to be, the better form. Hopefully those teams continue to struggle, and it's not a big. I mean, it's still a big gap, right? Talking about the seven points is still pretty significant gap, but I think with some of those teams continue to struggle, they might be able to squeeze in.
Yeah,
If they make a run. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I guess we'll keep an eye out on the Galaxy moving forward, and how their playoff push is looking like in the next few weeks. But one team that started off the same way that the Galaxy started off, but now are sitting real high on that league table, right? And definitely aren't worried about the playoffs right now, is OCSC, right? Have you been keeping up with their run of form recently?
yeah, so I mean, they were, now currently as of, yeah, I think first of all, they're probably on the best run in the whole league right now.
Best run I
I
think
think
I've ever seen them,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. So they were rooted towards the bottom of the league, or I'm sorry, of the conference. Now
Mhm.
they've rattled off, five straight wins so far,
Wins, yeah.
and they're tied for they're in fourth place, but I think they're tied with Oakland for in the third and fourth spots, 37 points. It might be maybe a reach to try to get into those top two spots, just because they're off 45 points in Sacramento and then San Antonio at 46 points. So, that's a pretty good gap still
Yeah.
to try to cover. But at least I think the from the whole league in general, I think they're going to be one of the favorites once they get into the playoffs. They've they just look solid. I think defensively they look like a totally different team. The attack is a lot different. They're more clinical. Just yesterday they beat Pittsburgh, number one seeded team in the Eastern Conference. No, and they beat them. It was back. They both had their opportunities, but they scored the goal in 1-0 and played solid defense. So I think Coach Carson has them just playing, believing, playing a lot better, a
Mhm.
lot more organized. It just looks very different compared to the previous coach.
Yeah, and I think it really shows the difference of what you know. It doesn't always play out like that when you bring in a new manager and he changes the dressing room like he has. But I think this really shows what a great manager or a change of voice in the dressing room can do. A better change of voice, right? Is because you see this turnaround right after he came into that managerial spot, right? Yeah, and now from what I see, they're winning games different ways. They're winning games by banging in the goals, 3-1, 4-1, but they're also winning those tight nitty gritty wins, right? With the 1-0 wins and stuff like that, or even the comeback wins, which I think was one of the notes that I had here was that I don't know if you've noticed this, but they're scoring all the goals 45 minutes plus into the game, right? So they're all kind of come from behind wins. And that's kind of what you want to be at as a team. I think, right before a playoff push, right? You want to be winning all these games. You want to be winning games in different ways. That way you're confident, come playoff time, you can, you have that confidence that you can beat any team anyway.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think they have more. They just look like their tactics a little bit more diverse than what we were seeing prior. I think it was maybe a little limited to maybe how they were being set up, maybe how they were attacking, teams. Yeah, I think overall they just look like a better team, right? In terms of how they work together, how they build up attacks, how they
Mhm.
defend, and it's the same roster. So yeah, I think I give a lot of props to the manager and making significant changes right with the same roster, same group of guys, right, and they went from bottom part of the table to now top half of it. So
Yeah, and that's a
yeah.
good point too, because it's the same exact team that was on the field. Not exact team, but I think just one other like backup player. But it's basically been the same team, throughout that transition, right? And you're seeing this big turnaround, this big 180. But you know what I like seeing too is that you're seeing goals from the whole team. It's not just Alosky, carrying the
Hmm.
team. It's goals from everyone, right? But you are seeing Alosky pick up again, right? And it's always good to see him, in his highest level, scoring the goals like he's used to. Because when he goes, I think this team's really going to go, as far as he's going to go. Definitely I'm a big fan, Alosky fan, right?
No,
So,
I agree. I think last year it was kind of the Lasky show, but that was really it.
mhm,
So he had a very personally he had a very successful season, but as a team they weren't. They didn't they weren't playing well. Nobody else was scoring. So I think now he's top half right of top scorers still in the league. Maybe
yeah.
compared to last year, not as as successful, but as a team they're having better success, and he's definitely a significant part of that. So I think I think they're getting a lot better contribution overall. That comes as they play as a team. Probably last year it was more of an individual, standout performances from inside, and as a team, right? They just weren't having that success. And I think this year is 180 compared to kind of how they're playing early in the year and even all of last year, right? I think we talked about it. It was very dreadful watching some of those games, right? You could
Mhm.
you could sense, right, that they just didn't have it in them, right, to score one
Yeah.
goal or anything, right? Even one goal seemed like it was too far of a reach. So yeah, I think just now, I think every time I see them, I think they're in a position to win every single game that they're competing,
Yeah.
and I don't think I could ask for more. It's just the form continues, right? They continue with the similar form, and hopefully that carries into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch the team moving forward. I know we talked about this off the air, but hopefully we're able to go and catch some OCST games hopefully in the playoffs. I know you're the one that carries the Orange County season tickets. Are you planning on extending it for the playoffs, or what are your thoughts on that? Because usually
Um,
it's like pay as you go, I think,
mhm.
for the
Yeah,
playoffs.
I think I'm not sure about the as they advance. I think I'll definitely take it game by game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm hoping to make those games just because I haven't been able to attend the large majority of the home games so far. But that should be exciting, right? Was it a couple years ago, right? We were at a couple of the playoff games. It's I think this year they're going to be going in as favorites, so I think it'd be a lot more exciting. There's going to be you know. Very likely, right? It's going to be sold out or very close to that, right?
Yeah.
For on the home game. So yeah, looking forward to that. So yeah, but I'm planning to attend, as they go. Hopefully they advance, go deep in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, from what I see, there's still 10 games left. I don't know how many of those like home games are left, but still a lot of time left to try to make that push for number one, even maybe number two, and really see where everything plays out from there. But um, is there anything else you want to talk about Orange County? We
No, I
covered a
think
lot
I
already.
think I think we really covered it. They've just been on a
Air.
run. Yeah, really, they're probably the best informed team in the whole league. So hopefully that continues. But yeah, we'll see. But I think it's trending in a very positive direction for them as they close out the season and head into the playoffs.
Yeah. So I know today we talked about the LA Galaxy and their new signings and kind of how that's going to shape up, in the future and how maybe a possible playoff push is going to look like. We talked about Orange County soccer. Is there anything else you think that we should talk about?
I would like to at least mention. I know maybe you haven't been keeping up too much with the Women's World Cup, but I've been catching. I've caught a good number of group games. I haven't had the opportunity to watch the knockout rounds, but
Hmm.
I'm planning to catch the final this Sunday. So it's this Sunday, England versus Spain. So it's an all European match, and I think just for me overall, it's been a very enjoyable World Cup. I think this is the first time I've really kind of sat down and kind of consistently watched and followed it. And it kind of gave me similar vibes to kind of the men's World Cup, where you had a good mix of underdog teams that were very successful. You had surprise, some of the big teams not meeting expectation. For example, you had Germany falling off in the group stage. The U.S. team not having success; they really struggled throughout the tournament. So, and then you saw, the home team Australia make it all the way, to the semifinals and losing out to finals on home soil, right? So, I think it was just very exciting. I'm definitely gonna keep. I think I'm gonna try to attend some of the I believe is the L.A. Angels or something like. I need to double check,
Angel
but
City.
Angel City FC, and they play at unfortunately they play at the LAFC home stadium.
Yeah, that'd be cool, man. I
Yeah,
think I told you that too. That I'd be interested to see like a women's soccer game just for fun.
yeah. Yeah, and
Grab a beer,
like I
check it
said,
out.
I would recommend going back and at least watching like the highlights. That's how I kept track with
Mhm.
the Fox Sports does the highlights on YouTube. It really gives you a good idea of how the games went. Like I said, it was a high level World Cup compared to other two men's World Cups. Very comparable. I think the level of, like for the women has gone up quite a bit. So, like I said, just my kind of 2 cents in there, but it was very very good World Cup and it kind of filled the void of soccer for that period as the kind of Europeans leagues were on break and all that. So yeah, so if anybody wants to catch the final, it's this Sunday, England versus Spain. So should be exciting. And
Yeah,
I'm gonna
man.
be rooting. I'm gonna be rooting for England.
All
They
right,
can finally
root for
they can bring it home. The women's side.
Yeah, yeah. I know there was drama with Spain and all that, but maybe we'll leave that for another podcast. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see any kind of final. I think is exciting to see. right? Winner takes all. A World Cup, of course, it's going to be a big game, so we'll keep an eye on that. Everyone, thank you for listening. Stay dry over the weekend if you're going to be here in locally. Yeah, if you're local, LA, Orange County area. Anything else, Chris, you want to add?
No, I think that's it. I think that wraps it up, I think, right?
Yep. Just remember, please follow us on our socials at Talking Soccer with Chris and Will on our YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll include the description down in the bio. But all right, guys. See you.
All right, till next time.
Signing off. Bye.
All right, bye.